Right, hi guys, by now you should have your scores back, and I'm going to go through the Chapter 9 test. So I'm not going to go through any of the ones where people mainly got it all right. I will just very briefly, I'll just sort of read out my answers and only go through some of the ones where people sometimes found it a bit trickier. Okay, so starting with number 1. I just wrote Team 1 scored slightly more points on average because we're comparing medians, so you want to compare the average. You also want to make some comparison about the spread, so you could literally just say Team 1 has a larger interquartile range and it also has a larger range, although it's a bit easier to tell with the interquartile range. And if you're looking for a third comparison, you can make some comment about Team 1 having a lower minimum than Team 2, or Team 1 having a lower maximum than Team 2, just something like that. So I think everyone got all of that right. 1B, people mainly got this right. You want to pick Team 2 in this situation because they want to see high scoring games. You're actually looking for the fact that Team 2 has a higher minimum. Even though on average Team 1 will outscore Team 2, sometimes Team 1 has a low scoring game, and the sports fan's priority for this particular sports fan, their priority is that they want to see high scoring games, so you would pick Team 2. Okay, this one I believe everyone got it right, so there's not a lot for me to say there. Number 3, right? There's a couple of you who you're not remembering how to calculate the standard deviation. Now, there's 2 videos already on the channel about how to work out the standard deviation of a set of numbers, so like this question, and also in a situation where you have grouped data as well, where you would estimate it using the midpoints. So those videos will be linked in the description. I will just quickly do this now though, because I might as well. The formula for the mean is you add up the x's and you divide by it, so this will be x bar. So if you add them all up, I'm not going to actually do the whole calculation or whatever, I'm just going to tell you what you get. So you add them all up and divide by how many, you get 16. And for the standard deviation, it's a good idea to start with the variance, which is sigma squared. And what you do here is you add them all up squared first. So you square them all and add them all up and divide by how many. So this is actually the average of the squareds, the average of the squares, as it were. But from that you subtract the mean squared. And this was a common thing that people sometimes forgot to do. You need to make sure that this is included. So if you square all of these and add them all up and divide by how many, you end up with this. And then I'll need to take away 16 squared, and that's this answer here. And then it wants the standard deviation, so we need to square root this, so it's the square root of that, which is 17.37 to 2 decimal places. Right, for part B, we are actually given the various bits of information that we'd actually need to use to apply to this formula, right? So for the mean, it's sigma d over n, so that will be the mean. And for the standard deviation, it's sigma d squared, or rather sigma d squared, because we're adding up all of the squares, right? It's not the same thing as doing the sum and then squaring that answer. It's not the same thing. I talk about a bit more about that in the actual video on standard deviation, and I'll have to take away the mean squared. So I guess in this situation I'd have to write that, wouldn't I? And then I'll have to square root that. Right, that's the standard deviation. So for the mean for that one, you should get 18.3, and for the standard deviation, you should get about 9.13 to 2 decimal places. Although some people introduced it. I believe they introduced it. I mean, maybe it's my mistake, to be fair. You might want to check this again. If you don't round until the end, I think you should get 9.13. But some people, I believe, got 9.14 because they rounded their 55 over 3 to 18.3 and used that instead of using 55 over 3. So it's just something to be aware of. Okay, somebody claims that route B is more reliably on time than route A. Comment on this statement. I wrote that the lower standard deviation means B is more consistent. So whether or not you claim, that's I guess that means B is somehow more reliable because the times are more consistent. However, it's more consistently late than A because it has a higher average delay. So yeah, most people got 3 out of 3 for that. So that's for that question. So obviously that was pretty good. Most people did this. I think the easiest way to do it is just to, you could use ratio, you could use a multiplier. So I did 528 times 72 over 79.2. Right, so 528, let me just have a look because I'm rushing this a bit because I want it to be quick. So we are, when we divide by 79.2, that's like working out what 1 degree is, and then when we times by 72, we're working out what this bit is here. So if I actually work this out, it's 480. So I'll say that again. You can work out what 1 degree is. This is often called the unitary method. So you work out what 1 of the thing is and then multiply back up to get what you want. So 528 is for 79.2 degrees. So you work out what 1 degree is and then you would multiply that by 72. And this is the fast way of just doing that calculation. So you get 480 hours. Okay, for part 2, let's see. I'm kind of stuck in two minds as to actually going through the question and just telling you what I wrote. So I did 79.2 take away 46.8, which is 32.4. Because we're here, aren't we? So 79.2 for the south, take away 46.8 for the west. This is the difference in the degrees, which is 32.4, and that is supposed to be representing 387. So basically 387 divided by 32.4, this is what 1 degree is representing. So this is 215 over 18 when you simplify it. And then to get the total amount of time, I'm actually going to now multiply this by 360, right? So I've got what 1 degree is, so I want what 360 degrees is. So this gives me 4,300, and this is in hours. If on any given question I'm going too quick or I don't go in enough detail, you email me and I'll give you personally a bit more information or a bit more guidance, okay? I just don't want this to be a long video. Right, 4B, mostly everyone got this as well. It's because in a pie chart, the pie chart just tells you the proportion of their individual totals. The totals themselves may be different, okay? The totals themselves might be different. That's the important thing. These are just proportions of their own individual total.